let's start. Good afternoon to everybody, and good morning for those who are connected with us through internet in the United States or in somewhere else where now it's the morning. Well, we are going to develop in this session a presentation of the winter school. Since yesterday, the winter school has been started, or since today, and you are going to work during several months in order to cover this module of the master, which is called Joint Intensive Learning Unit. I will explain later on what it is. But to start, I would like to introduce briefly this Joint Intensive Learning Unit that we colloquially call winter school, because it will take place along the winter, well, autumn, winter, and maybe some spring, because we will start the 2nd or the 3rd of November, and we will end the 3rd stage at the end of March. Okay? Well, the first thing I would like to explain is that this winter school is a module, or this joint intensive learning is a module of the Erasmus Mundus Master Course, Work and Organizational Psychology, and Work, Organization, and Personal Psychology. Of course, this is obvious for all of you who are here, and for many of the students that are studying this course, this master. However, there is some people who will participate in the winter school but is not studying this master. So that's why we will explain something that probably you know well, but some people is not well informed. Well, the first thing I would like to say is that this Joint Intensive Learning Unit is organized by a consortium of universities that is the consortium that is teaching the Erasmus Mundus Master Course, WOP, Work and Organizational and Personal Psychology. The consortium is composed by the University of Valencia, that is the university that coordinates the master, then the University of Barcelona, the Alma Mater Studiorum University of Bologna, and the University of Coimbra. They all are very well established and highly reputed universities in Europe, quite old. Some universities, University of Bologna is more than 900 years old, and the youngest, who is the University of Valencia, is about 530 years old. So, as you see, they are quite well established and with a long history. Together with that, we have two other universities that participate in our consortium as, let's say, as associate universities. They are not running all the program, but they are cooperating in some areas of the program. During this edition, the universities are the University of Brasilia in Brazil and the University of Guelph in Canada. But we are already starting an extension of the consortium, and since the next year on, we will have other 4 universities that will also be members of the consortium. And it will be the Florida Institute of Technology in the United States, the University of Baltimore, the University of San Juan of Puerto Rico, San Juan de Puerto Rico, and also the Illinois Institute of Technology. All in total, since the next year on, for the next editions of the master, we will be 10 universities in the consortium, 4 delivering the whole program, and 6 participating in the delivery of one part of the program that normally will be the internship. Some people of the master will be able to study the internship in these members of the consortium. Okay. Well, the second idea that I would like to emphasize here is that we have decided since some years ago to organize this Joint Intensive Learning Unit in memoriam of 2 professors that have played a very important role in the development of this master. One is Professor Robert Roux. Professor Robert Roux, that unfortunately passed away in 2016, has been since the beginning, even earlier than the beginning, till he died, the chair of the advisory committee of our master. He worked very hardly with us. He advised us when we were preparing the master, because the first time we had 2 years of preparation before we started the first edition of the master. Afterwards, he was one of the most important inspiring persons to design the winter school, together with the members of the coordinating committee and other people that we involved. And he was one of the persons that gave us a very clear guideline and guidance for how to organize this winter school and what will be the emphasis that you will see later on. But in addition, he has been teaching the at least 8 editions of the winter school, and he was in charge of the design module that was the key module and is the key module in this winter school. Together with Professor Robert Rule, when we started, we also were fortunate to have the support and the guidance of Professor Bernard Wilber from the Technical University of Berlin. He died 2 years after we started the Erasmus Mundus program, but during the preparatory years and the first 2 years, he was also helping us a lot and giving us very good ideas to launch and to develop our master. So we really are very grateful of all what they have done. We are really grateful of how they have been supporting our master, and that is why we want to honor them and their memory, dedicating this winter school to their memory. Okay. Other thing that it is important to be aware is that it's interesting that Europe has taken the name of Erasmus for these programs and also for the programs of mobility of students within Europe. You know that there are a program which is Erasmus, and this is for mobility of European students across countries and different universities. But in addition to that, the European Commission and the European Union has launched this Erasmus Mundus program that now in the context of the Horizon 2020, Joint Mobility, and this is because Desiderius Erasmus, a philosopher and thinker of the 15th and 16th century, he was really a very, very relevant figure in Europe. And he was a very important philosopher working out and developing the transition from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. He was really one person who was influencing a lot the thinking and the transition towards the Renaissance and the new and the modernity. And he was a humanist. He was emphasizing the international relations and the international scope of the thinking of the humankind. He was really an innovative mind, reconciling conflicting parties. He was emphasizing the importance of balancing the past and the present and future, the religiosity and the classicism, the political conflicts, and how to overcome and, let's say, solve them in order to achieve peace among the different countries and among the different states. So, well, it is important, and in our webpage we have a much more developed picture of this important philosopher and this important thinker, and I invite you to go in the webpage and know more about, because I think he is really relevant, a good example also for the times that we are living now. We are again in a very important transition from let's say the society that we had in the 20th century, that I think we are in a very important change of era, that we cannot still very clearly know where we're going, but of course we are in a very transitional period of change, and we can learn of knowing how he was influencing and inspiring this long transition from the Middle Ages towards the Renaissance and towards the modernity in Europe and in the world. Okay. If we go and try to explain a little bit about what is the Erasmus Mundus Joint Master Degrees as a general program of Erasmus Plus, not only work and organizational psychology, but in general, you know that there are more than 150 programs, Erasmus Mundus joint master degrees. What they are aiming? What is the policy and what is the aims that European Union is trying to achieve with this? Well, first is to promote the European Union as a center of excellence in learning around the world. That is why most of the grants are not for European students. Most of the grants are for non-European students, because we want to attract excellent students, attract talent from different parts of the world, because we want to also that they benefit from the excellence in teaching and learning here. At the same time, we want to benefit from the contributions of the students and of the scholars from different parts of the world. In addition to that, this program aims to enhance the quality of European higher education through international cooperation, because we are convinced that cooperation is always important to improve and to enhance quality. Then another goal is to improve the development of human capital in Europe and abroad, and to promote the dialogue and understanding between different peoples and cultures. This is the general aims of the program of Erasmus Mundus joint master degrees. But then what about our own master? Our master, work and organization and personal psychology, has also more specific or some specific concretions of our of these goals. The first one, again, is international scope. Our vocation is to attract people from all over the world. We are fortunate because the applications are more than 250 every year, and they come from more than 80 different countries all over the world. The selection is very competitive. We are a consortium, and for the next year on, we will be the consortium of 10 universities, 4 European and 6 from other parts of the world. The master is a 2 years full-time master, and the inspiring guiding approach is scientist practitioner model. We are convinced that psychologists, they have to be prepared professionally, and their professional activities and approach has to be grounded and based on scientific research. And that is why we also want to emphasize evidence-based practice. In addition, and following a very interesting tradition and a very interesting model in Europe that was agreed by the European Network of Work and Organization of Psychology Professors, we have organized our teaching and the learning in the master, taking into account like 2 big important approaches. One is the explanatory science, the explanatory approach to the understanding of the phenomenon that are relevant for work and organizational psychology, and the other one is the intervention or the technical approach to change the reality. So we want both to understand and scientifically explain the phenomena that are relevant for work and organizational psychology, and at the same time, we want also to learn how professionally and based on scientific knowledge we can help organizations and people and the members and employees and workers to change their reality. So that's why we combine the approach of knowledge, explanatory knowledge, and intervention knowledge. And in addition, we put emphasis on developing competencies. And this master aims both to train and educate the graduates, all of the students that are studying the master course, be it in Bologna, with mobility, of course, because every student of the master has a mobility and at least studies in 2 universities of the consortium, 2 European universities, or be it in Barcelona, or the students of Coimbra, or the students of Valencia, all together will work in this joint intensive learning unit, and that is why it is joint, and we will work face-to-face and in residence period near Valencia in Gandia, in a special residence for this purpose of face-to-face work. But before, we will work virtually with people and belonging to different universities. But in addition to the universities of the consortium in Europe, we will have also some students coming from the other members of the consortium, like Guelph, Brasilia, and in the coming years also Baltimore, Puerto Rico, Illinois Institute of Technology, and Florida Institute of Technology. We organize like 2 winter schools because we think that in order to guarantee and develop quality, we need to have a good size, and then the maximum size is between 26, 25, 26, 27 per each winter school. One winter school has some emphasis in organizational psychology, while the other winter school has some emphasis in human resources psychology or personal psychology. However, I have to say that they are structured and designed in a way that they are quite similar in terms of the kind of activities that you do. The only slight emphasis is that these activities are more towards organizational phenomena or processes in one case, or personal or human resources psychology processes in the other case. But there are similar topics, similar groups, similar kind of activities, so that the difference is not that big. But still we try to, let's say, color a little bit depending on the emphasis. Well, what are the aims of the Joint Intensive Learning Unit? Well, first, to develop competencies to design. In the context of the reference model of competencies to be a professional psychologist, according to EuroPsych, there is a block which focuses on design competencies. What is design? Well, what we mean by design is that in many cases, professionals have no prêt-à-porter tools or strategies or models for intervening in organizations, because these prêt-à-porter are not good enough. And then you decide to design new interventions because you want to provide a more tailored interventions to the companies. This is more and more needed. The design approach of the intervention of work and organizational psychology is very important. In many cases, psychologists, when they need to use a test, they go and see in the market what are the tests available. And if any of those are good, it makes sense to use it. But if they are aiming a new thing, a new goal, and they don't find a good, suitable test for what they want, then maybe they decide to design a new test. And if they decide to design a new test, then they have to be knowledgeable on how to do it. They have to be trained on how to do it, because then you increase the quality of your services. But it is important to be aware that designing is more than just having a good idea. Designing is converting this good idea in a method, in a tool, in a system, in a program of intervention that is tested and you know that will be effective in achieving what you aim to achieve. So designing is a complex process, but it is important that you be aware that if you need design any kind of intervention or any kind of measurement, you have to know how to do it. This is our emphasis. Professional interventions, in some cases, have to be just implemented because they are ready to use in the market. In some cases, need to be adapted, and in some cases, need to be designed from the scratch, from the beginning. Okay, what we want is to train you, to educate you, and you to learn how to design interventions. The another aspect that we want to emphasize in this winter school is the global environment. Global because it's a combination of global and local. We want you to be work and organizational psychologists for ready and prepared to work in global areas or in global issues or in global organizations for a global approach. But at the same time, and then some of our alumni are working in the UNESCO or in or and United Nations, or in different areas that are really global, or in international World Bank, for instance. So, but in addition to that, many of you will work internationally. Some of you, maybe you work in Australia or in Africa or in Asia, and then but you will work in a context, in a real context, in a local context. Probably along your career, maybe you move from one context to another very different context, and that is why you need to develop cross-cultural competencies in addition to professional competencies. So this is what this winter school aims, to help you to implement interventions and design interventions, taking into account that you have to combine the global perspective and the local perspective. A third aspect that we want to emphasize is that we want you to practice working in virtual and cross-cultural teams. We know that this is hard, this is difficult, and even it could be a source of stress. We expect that it will be more a source of eustress than of distress. But of course, you have to learn how to prevent distress when you work in an international environment and virtually, not face-to-face. And this is quite difficult, but you have to learn. And if we do not expose you to the situation, if you do not have any opportunity to work virtually with deadlines, with a goal, with some tasks, then you will not experience that kind of work. So in this winter school, it is designed systematically for you to practice how to work dealing with the different time zones, dealing with different people speaking different languages, and in some cases, more or less, mastering more or less English, which will be the common language. We also want you to experience how to work with people in different cultures, that they understand maybe deadlines in different ways. Maybe they take different ways of taking responsibility. Maybe they understand in different ways what the kind of responsibilities they have taken when you have distributed work. All this and solving these kind of conflicts is really a challenge that we would like you to learn to deal with and to cope, and to make out of that the best learning experience that you can, even if it is some pain, because no pain, no gain. So in a way, you have to have productive and positive pain or challenge for learning more. Okay. Finally, we want to create an experiential learning atmosphere. It's not that we are going to teach you. You will have some sessions, but this is not the important thing. The important thing is what you do. How do you learn? By doing. We say that the only way of learning competencies is learning by doing, under supervision and feedback. And for that, of course, you need knowledge, you need skills, you need to practice skills, and you need attitudes. Of course, the teaching staff, the academic staff wants to work with you to stimulate your acquisition of knowledge, your acquisition and practice of skills, and your positive attitudes towards the work. Okay, so what are the characteristics of our joint intensive learning unit? Well, first, multicultural and international approach. And this is in several ways, because the topics and perspectives that we ask you to approach the topics will be multicultural. We will ask you to study different contexts and to locate your intervention in a given context, in a given geographical and national and political and geopolitical context and socioeconomic context. Second, we want to be, and we are international because we have an international teaching staff in the winter school. And finally, we are international because we have a very rich diversity in terms of international and cultural approach of the students enrolled in the winter school. So you know that in your cohort, there are more than 20 or 25 different nationalities, different cultures, different countries, and this is a great opportunity to learn. Of course, we want to encourage the virtual teamwork competencies, also the in-residence teamwork with real, close to real exercises, and also, again, an experiential learning atmosphere. Well, and how it is designed, the winter school? Well, we have 5 modules. We think that in order to learn to design, you need, first of all, to have a certain ethical approach. If you design something, you have to do it taking into account ethical principles and organizational fairness and justice principles. Otherwise, the design can be to manipulate, can be to support some stakeholders against others, and you have to get as a basic inspiration ethics and fairness. And then you need to understand the context where you want to design. You want to design it to intervene in a given context, be it South Africa, be it Vietnam, be it Argentina, or be it Germany, Spain, or wherever you like. But then you need to understand the context. You cannot import a model that works well in the States or in UK or in Sweden and assume that it will work well in Kenya. You cannot do that. So in a way, you need to contextualize, and for that you need to know the context. So this is the second. But in addition to knowing the context, you need to know what it is known in science on the topic you want to intervene. If you want to intervene in management of stress and controlling and preventing distress in order to improve quality of working life and health at work, you need to review the literature available to clarify what is known and what is scientifically based and what is the empirical evidence. And again, you have to manage, because in some cases, the empirical evidence has been obtained in some cultures, but you want to apply this empirical evidence in other very different cultures. You have to be critical to analyze how much this will work or not. Finally, you want to design an intervention, and then you have to know all the technology and all the knowledge to design interventions. And then you want to implement it. Implementation of the interventions is also an important area that we will tackle in this master. So you see, we have 5 modules. The 3, ethics, contextual factors, and state-of-the-art, are relevant modules for you to start to design. Then you design interventions, and afterwards you have to be competent on how to implement interventions. Okay? Let's continue. Let's go one per one. The module of ethics and fairness will be taught by Professor Dirk Steiner, and he will stimulate your awareness and knowledge about justice and fairness issues, and also your knowledge of ethical principles and how to use them when you plan to design an intervention. And this is the first module that you are going to have during the winter school. In the second module will be about contextual factors, and we will have Professor Richard Griffith from the Florida Institute of Technology. He is the director of the Cross-Cultural Institute of Cross-Cultural Management, so he is really an expert in the issues about cross-cultural management, cross-cultural competencies, cross-cultural psychology, and he's leading quite a very interesting number of projects on this issue. So I think, and he is starting since this year on to lead and to teach this module. I am very grateful because he has accepted to continue. See, until now, this module was taught by Professor Erik Andriessen, but he has retired, and he asked us to finalize his cooperation, although he has been very helpful in facilitating all the materials and all his wisdom and knowledge for the transition. So now we welcome Professor Richard Griffith. He will work with you and stimulate your work on the analysis of national and international contexts where organizational psychology and personal psychology professional activities are developed. He will teach both. Also, Dirk Steiner will teach both winter schools. So in a way, they will be very similar, the teaching, but we prefer to repeat it 2 times because it's better to teach in a classroom with 25 people or 26 than teaching in a classroom of 50. We want your participation and your active involvement and engagement much more, and so we try to keep it in a different in 2 different modules. Okay. The state of the art is the 3rd module. What is the state of the art? The state of the art is that you need to know what is known in empirical and scientific literature about the topic in which you want to design an intervention. If you want to design an intervention, for instance, in a, well, let's say, improving innovation in an organization and fostering innovation in an organization, you need to know what has been done before. You need to know what are the most effective models about innovation. You need to know what is known and published in the literature. So you need to review and to become aware of the state of the art. All of you have already practiced this when you have developed your research. In your research, you have approached one important issue that you wanted to do research, and then you have done a literature review. And then you wrote a position paper after doing the literature review. But that is to train you as researchers. But we are aware that a practitioner maybe has not all that time and all that possibilities of doing a very, very thorough and detailed research, looking at every article and reading a lot of articles, because you need to intervene and maybe there is no time for that. So in this module, Professor Rob Briner will teach you how to do a SOAREA. What is SOAREA? Is to carry on a state of the art on a topic, but rapid evidence assessment. That means he's going to give you the keys in order to be quite fast and quite efficient in identifying the key evidence, the key points, and the key elements of evidence that are especially relevant for what you want to intervene and to design. Well, Robert Briner will teach this state of the art in organizational psychology, and David Guest, also a very prestigious professor in King's College in London, will teach the same module, state of the art, in personnel or human resources psychologists. They are top leaders, leading persons, leading researchers in the fields, and I think you are going to enjoy about that. And the emphasis is going to be on rapid evidence assessment on intervention and also evidence-based management. Well, and then we come to the core module of the master, because it's the one that you are going to work for more time, especially during the in-residence. You are going to work quite a lot on this topic, on this module, during the in-residence period. We want you to acquire knowledge, skills, and attitudes, that means competencies, to design interventions, both as professionals and as researchers, but mainly here as professionals. Okay? How are you going to do that? Okay? Professor Vicente González Román and Professor Salvatore Zappala, based and guided by Professor Robert Ruch, who was training them for several years, they were cooperating with him. They are going to continue this core module of our winter school. You will have some readings during the preparatory phase, and when you will arrive there, you will have a very specific training on how to design in organizations interventions. And then you will receive a case study. And you will work in groups of 5, maximum 6 people. And during half of the winter school, the winter school is scheduled in a way that half a day is for modules, working in modules on the topics, and half a day is for you to work in teams to design an intervention. And then the different teams will receive the same assignment. The 5 teams in organization psychology will receive the same case, and the personal groups, 5 groups also, will receive also a case very similar, but with another topic of intervention. And then you have to work in teams during 10 half days, no, not 10, 8 half days, because the last day is for presentation and the first day is for introduction. 8 half a days to design the intervention. And the last day you will present the intervention, and the people from the company, the stakeholders who has asked you to design that intervention, will evaluate and will give an award, and also it will give for each winter school, but it will give also rich feedback on your positive and very interesting contributions and the things that you could improve or could take into account to further learning. Okay? Well, so we have the implementation of the intervention. Of course, there will be no time to implement the design that you developed there, because the design that you developed there is finished the last day and evaluated the last day. But still, we wanted to devote at least 2 half sessions for a workshop on implementation. How to implement what somebody else has designed, because you are not going to learn how to implement what you are designing, because you are still designing it. But at least we want you to know how to implement some interventions, some designed interventions. And then Professor Fred Hillstra will run and lead and stimulate your work on implementation in organizations, in organizational change, while Professor Neil Anderson will lead your work and will guide your work for you to implement interventions more specifically related in personal issues or personal approach or topics. Okay? Well, and this is basically what the different modules are. Well, in order for you to be clear what I was meaning when I said design, remember, most of you know the model of competencies of EFPA, of EuropeSci. There are 20 competencies grouped in different blocks. There is a number of competencies in goal specification, how you identify the needs of your customer, of your client, and of your stakeholders, of the client, of the stakeholder, and also how do you set and establish the goals of your intervention. Second, you probably will need to assess how is the situation, and that implies being competent in assessment, in psychological and organizational assessment. Third, you probably will have to identify some interventions that you can implement, and then you implement, but you need to be competent on how to implement interventions. Fourth, you want to evaluate if your intervention has been effective or not, and if it has had side effects, and if those side effects are positive or not that positive or negative. And finally, you want to communicate the results of the intervention to all the interested groups, the stakeholders. Okay, this is the typical cycle of intervention in an organization. What is the problem? That in some cases, you do not have the proper tools to do the assessment, or the proper models or strategies or programs of intervention to do the intervention, or the proper tools to do the evaluation or to do the communication. And then is when it comes the need of designing new assessment tools, new interventions, new evaluation methods, or new communication methods, or new goal specification. and this is what we are going to pay attention in our winter school, to the design approach. Is this now clear? Till now, you have in the master have been learning and practicing mostly the external cycle. Now, in the winter school, we are going to focus in this design cycle. Okay? Well, what else? These are the contents. But in addition, these contents are going to be learned by you in different stages or phases. The first phase that we start today, from the 3rd of November till 17th of February, you are going to work in teams. Intentionally, we want you to be, the team to be composed by different people from different universities. Probably in Valencia, you are 2 persons per team, but normally, in many cases, but normally we try to be as diverse as possible. And then you are going to work through the Aula Virtual and through e-learning and using virtual environment, and you are going to work in the 5 modules. In some modules, you will have more intensive work than in others in this phase. For instance, I know that the work is quite intensive for contextual factors, for state of the art. You have to do a good revision of the state of the art of the topic that you choose, and you have to consult if the topic is okay with the supervisors and the teaching staff in each of the winter schools. So you are going to work more intensively on that, but you will have to read something on design, you will have to read something and work something on fairness and justice, and also on implementation. Then we come to the in-residence phase or stage that will be from the 18th of February to the 3rd of March. And this is going to happen, as I announced already, in the International Center of the University of Valencia that is in Gandia. Gandia is a city in the south of Valencia. It's a very touristic city, but fortunately, we will go there in low season. Times that we will go there in low season, but low season in Spain and in Valencia is still a nice, normally a nice and mild weather. So we can benefit of very, very good opportunities in terms of pricing for the hotel and costs. And this, during this in-residence 2 weeks period, we have scheduled the work face-to-face in the different modules. And again, you will go through the 5 modules, in some cases to present your work that have been done during the virtual phase, and in the case of design, to practice all the design process for the design process for intervention in organizations. And then when we will finish the 3rd of March, then you will have, and this is coordinated by me, you will have nearly 1 month to write an integrative final assignment of what you have learned. And in addition to that, I will ask you not only to elaborate a final assignment, but also to develop a press release, because we do not want you only to do good interventions. We want you to practice how to advertise, how to announce, how to market these interventions. And then we are going to practice that under the model of preparing a press release to announce your intervention to the target population that you define. Okay? Well, in addition to that, of course, we want that you work smart, but also that you have fun and that you socialize and you enjoy. So that is why we have a social program, a Sunday welcome dinner, and team presentations. We will arrive mid-evening, about 6, 7 is the time where we arrive to Gandia. Then you have about 1 hour for accommodate, and then at 8 or 8:30, we start the official dinner, welcome dinner. And in that welcome dinner, you will, first we have a nice dinner, and then afterwards you present. You don't know most of your team except by Skype, but then you get there together for the first time, and then you have to make a very short sketch for presenting the team to the rest of the people. Okay? Well, but in addition to that, we stimulate. In some cases we organize formally, in other cases we stimulate it informally, a visit to Gandia. Gandia has a wonderful palace. Gandia was the Duchness of a very important family Borgia of the Renaissance, of the 16th, 17th century, the Borgias. They had several popes. It was one of the important families, and part of the family was original from Valencia and Gandia. And they have a Duchess palace in Gandia. It's beautiful to visit it, and it's wonderful. This picture is taken in the royal, or no, that ducal palace of Gandia. We also have, on the first Friday, we have a social dinner, because you will be full board normally, full board in the hotel. But on Friday, we go to have a dinner somewhere else. Of course, and you will vote to see whose participants deserve to receive the WOPI Awards. You will hear more about that. And finally, we will have a graduation ceremony and, let's say, dinner and some wine reception. Okay, one important thing. Of course, we like that you enjoy and have fun, but we have to be very strict that this during the nights doesn't happen in the hotel, because some people want rest, and you are not the only customers of the hotel. So we will find a list of places where you can go and have fun if you want to have during the night for some while, some time, be together and enjoy together, but not in the rooms of the hotel. This, we are really strict on that. What else? Well, logistics. During the virtual phase, we will give you the possibility, and we will provide all the information through the University of Valencia virtual site. Plus, you can use other virtual tools like Skype or any kind of other ways that you have to work in Teams. During the in-residence phase, normally, this is the facilities of the University of Valencia in Gandia, and they are really good facilities, so that normally we can guarantee, every year we have to work hard to get it, but we can guarantee that you have a room to work as a team in a different and separate room. You can put there your posters, your ideas, and this room will be for you during the whole 2 weeks. So you will have a place to work there. You will be lodged in the Borgia Hotel. You can go there, you can visit the Borgia Hotel, and we will organize transport from winter school from the faculty and the airport to Gandia. And normally, but we always discuss that because some of you want to come back on your own, but normally we also organize some transport in the coming back to Valencia, the last day, so that you can go from gate to gate or from point to point with your luggage without taking the train and then a taxi and then going to the airport with the metro, etc. Okay? So we try to make it easy as soon as possible, as much as possible. Well, the coordinating team is me from one side as main coordinator, and then Salvatore Chapala is coordinating the organization of psychology winter school, and Leonor Pais from the University of Coimbra is coordinating the personnel. No, Salvatore is personnel and Leonor is, no, Salvatore is organization and Leonor is personnel. Okay, personal psychology. Both of them are going to help you, especially in the module of state of the art. You will during the virtual phase, the first phase on virtual team work, you will be guided by them. Afterwards, during the face-to-face stage, you will have us, the teaching staff, Professor Briner and Professor Ingves. Of course, the two most important people of the winter school, they are not the only ones, because there is a lot of people helping, like Emiliano, like Yolanda. A lot of people is helping on that. Some former students that now are they are studying now the PhD program here will help Esther and Carolina. But the ones who know really what we need to know in order to be successful, and the ones who put a lot of effort and I would say a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work are Esther and Carolina. So now already I want to acknowledge her work. Without them, it would be impossible to have the winter school. So we all have to be grateful to them. Well, what do we expect after all that? Well, we expect that you increase and you practice the intercultural awareness and respect. You have to respect those who speak poor English and those who speak very good English. You have to value both, because both are contributing for you to practice international relations and international work. And if you do not approach the issue from that perspective, you need something in order to be an international competent work and organizational psychologist. Because if you expect that with English you are going to have the opportunity to work everywhere else without being respectful with people that speaks in other languages, and so they in some cases have difficulties or not mastering enough English, English language, then you have to learn something. We expect from you that you get engaged and involved in the activities that we propose to you. We expect that you network professionally and socially, and you grow. Let me tell you that our alumni is a wonderful network. Most of them are in LinkedIn. They are helping each other themselves in terms of finding job opportunities. It's like a community, and it is a wonderful community. And we are really, really very satisfied and really, I don't know, moved every time that we receive an email and the email says, I am now working in this company. I am the head of the Human Resources Management Department, and I would love to receive one Erasmus Mundus student for internship here. And Salvador Carbonell is receiving a number of emails from our alumni, and we are really glad to see that, because they become our partners again in helping us to teach you and to facilitate your learning. Well, of course, we want you to enjoy, but I said already, within the framework and context of respect to others, and we want to stimulate your critical thinking, and as you know, because we have repeated this several times, your time management skills, working under pressure, but a creative pressure and not a punishing and, let's say, hard pressure that difficulties your development. Well, so this is the Joint Intensive Learning Unit. I welcome you, because this is the first day, to that winter school, and of course now I am available for your questions. Thank you very much. We said that we will first